All right, Kevin, let's get into it. When did you realize, Kevin, that you had to be someone that had to play the long game?
When did I realize the long game?
You had to be like you had to play the long game. I think you might have realized it, but when?
Um, I think there's various long games that I've realized I've had to play. I guess the initial response is probably usually the most honest one is that going into PhD, master's and PhD was I knew that I had to go through all of that just to get the credibility to be able to do the things that I was starting to realize needed to happen. So that was going to take time. I think my first go around with undergrad was I think I turned down becoming a doctor because I was like, I don't want to be in school for 12 years. And then I ended up doing it anyways. Uh, so in one way, shape, or form, I knew that the time over the long game was going to be required because you have to build up layers of credibility to do the stuff that we're trying to do.
And was school the first long game you played, or was it even before that?
I think I've always operated on the idea that you sequentially over time build up the things that I wanted to become. Even as a young kid, you sort of learn when you're not 6'5" and a perfect athlete that if you wanted to be successful at certain things, it was going to take persistence, right? And if anything, I've always gravitated to the narrative that the uh, the best are usually the ones that stay at it the longest.
Right. Was it what sport were you playing that you realized persistence would be your secret?
I think growing up in where I grew up in Indiana, basketball is a somewhat of
Right.
a religion, right? And I grew up as any Indiana kid does, where you watch teams, and we had one state championship, and me and a group of seven of my friends, when we were like 8 years old, said we wanted to do that, and we ended up doing it. I was the shortest and not the most athletic of my group of friends. My shortest friend, other than me, which is I'm sub 6 foot, was 6'4". So I knew I was going to have to bring something else to that mix, probably very early. And
What did you bring? Was it just the persistence? Like, what did they see as your unfair advantage? You got all these huge tall friends, and they've how tall were you at the time? You're
all
all over
five,
6 foot.
yeah, 5'10", 5'11".
Oh, you're not that short. You're
Yeah,
basketball. You're basketball short.
I'm basketball short. My tallest friend was 6'10". My
Right.
next shortest friend was 6'4", which was a real oddity, I guess. But what did I bring? The willingness to do whatever it took, probably was something that I've always brought.
Where did that come from? That's a rare quality.
I don't actually know, other than I learned pretty early that there wasn't really too many things that I worked at long enough that I couldn't do. It was a matter of choosing what things became important.
If you can't remember the first time that you maybe developed it, when's the first time you saw it? Where you reckon is there something that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think there's an experience that stands out pretty,
Sure.
in hindsight, right? So, family and parenting, one of the experiences that I think I saw first was um, I had a significant distaste with somebody doubting that I could do something, and
Okay.
the borderline hatred for that sort of a way of saying things. And I think it's probably a unique, maybe not unique, maybe a
What?
problem.
How old were you? What was it?
Um, well, there's a couple that stand out to me. One was a question of whether or not I got asked whether or not I was considering college when I was really young. And it was because I hated school, I suspect, though I was quite good at it. And I think one of the phrasings that came out was, do you think you could actually be successful at it? And that pissed me off. Same thing with Seth.
Was it a teacher that said it to you?
Yeah.
Really?
One that I actually liked, and
Mm.
I don't necessarily know if it was because I was like doing the kid that's got talent and doesn't deploy it, or what prompted them to say it, but it motivated me. And I think that was one of the first things. It was like, well, I
Now reflecting, what is it? What was it? Do you think that reason they said it after you've been a teacher?
probably more of a motivational tactic than I'd like to admit at the time. I
Mm.
think I think the recognition of talent comparatively to the deployment of it are two different things for a kid. And I
Okay.
was lucky to have a few influences that knew how to motivate me, I think.
So you think it was valuable that they did that?
I think it's always valuable to tell somebody that they can't do something, or at least in some way, shape, or form, test whether or not they can. Um,
Okay.
I don't know. I think in one way, shape, or form, the
And this
idea
is
of,
before the state championship. This happened earlier than that.
oh, I mean, even at an early age, people said things like, "Well, that's really hard to do, and you guys will never do it." And um, one of the key reasons that we were able to was that we kept together that group of guys for many, many years, um, who I'm still friends with today. One of them's an investor, and
How did you keep them together? Well, how did you all stay together? Maybe is a better question.
it's luck sometimes, but I think it oftentimes in a group there's a shared incentive for staying together and persisting towards a particular goal, and that's probably something else that I'm usually the person that continues that glue and is willing to throw punches at a all-star because he's not working hard in practice.
Right.
Something like um
So were
I don't
you
know.
also the glue for the team in that goal?
Yeah, in hindsight, and we had our 25-year reunion recently, and that's one of the things the coach said to me was,
Hmm.
uh, at the time, I don't think I ever got really any kudos for really anything I did, which because I wasn't the star, and I was fine with that. I
Hmm.
think he said, every team that he coached for the next 20 years, he hoped that he had a player like me, and I was like, okay.
And how did wow? How did he describe you? How did he describe it? Did he describe you as the glue? What did he say?
The guy that would be willing to do anything to move everybody along and didn't necessarily care about personal accolades comparatively to the main goal.
Right. So you have a thirst for challenges that people can't complete, or they think you can't complete, um, and understanding that um, that persistent counts, and a trait that can bring A players together and push them further than what they think they could do. Where do you think you learned that?
To push further than what you think.
Yeah, like you were the glue, and then you pushed them further than you pushed them. It's like whether it was your tenacity, but I don't think it was just that. Right. Where did you learn that? That's a very interesting quality of a young person.
Um, I don't know when I learned that limitations are typically something that you put on yourself. Um, they're not real, right? In certain, I guess, certain contexts, they can be because of constraints that are in place that you can't change, but it's usually a minority of what limits people is actually constraints that can't be changed. If you work hard enough at it or are willing to, sacrifice what it takes to do those things. I don't know when I learned that. I can't actually place.
What?
Now that you asked that question, I can think about when I had a conversation. My dad's been a formidable person in my life, as many would say that that's true. Um, he asked when I was pretty young, I remember this like it was yesterday. He asked me if who are people that I think can do it better? he said, you know, as you get older, you recognize that there's people that can do it better. And my response was, why would I want anyone to do it better than me? And that was young and arrogant and a little misplaced, but as a 13-year-old boy might be. But I didn't want to have a fail-safe of thinking that somebody else could do something I couldn't. Felt like a cop-out.
I wonder, or maybe just to jump back and we can come back to that comment. You described your father as formidable. What's formidable about him?
I think there's a mixture of what you think your dad is and what he is. And
Hmm.
um, growing up at a time that I did, I think I placed rightfully a lot of value of the type of person that he was. He was hardworking, successful, and um, somewhat of a looming presence. That was also uh, I would say he was a constant sense of calm and kindness, despite
Mm.
some of these other things. And I really valued that. I thought you can be respected for the restraint that you show. And that always spoke to me and as a younger man and even into my life now is that you know you could think of the cliches of capable of extreme violence, but you decide not to. That seems like one of the things that I liked and respect the most about people is that you're highly capable of things, but in certain contexts show an immense amount of restraint.
Okay. And what, going on, did you guys win the state championship? Is that what happened? What
Yeah.
happened to those people? Did they, how did that change their lives? How did it change your life?
Well, I think at the time it was really neat because it was a small town and everybody sort of rallied around it and filled these huge stadiums with people, you know, cheering and screaming. And some of them went on to play 4 years at major universities,
Okay.
and some of them didn't do much else after that. Um, I think I think the if I think back about the experience, it's one of those things where we set out to do something that was really unique to us as a kid, and we got, I mean, we lost one game our entire senior year. We blew everybody out. It wasn't just a win, it was just absolutely going out and showing that we were the best every single night. It was pretty wild. That was a cool experience. There was some negativity, I think, involved with it, as there always is on teams, right? You have toxicity and personalities and everything else. But it was extremely positive as an experience in hindsight. I don't think very many people could look back at their teenage years and know they had a chance to experience something like that and know that it was a great one, but not by any means the most important. And I think
Right.
there's a gap with some of the guys as they've gotten older that it still remains one of their top achievements. And I never wanted it to be that. I was really glad I had it though.
Well, you probably even got their college paid for, don't you think?
I didn't. They did. Some of them.
Yeah, good. How does that make you feel as someone that's now an educator?
That some of them were able to go on full ride
You changed their
scholarships.
lives. Yeah. What do you mean?
Certainly changed their lives. In certain ways, I think that's a really neat outcome. I do know as an educator now that you're more likely to get a an academic scholarship than you ever are for basketball. So I don't know
Right.
why parents push their kids that way. I certainly don't do that with my own. But
Okay.
yeah, I think there's life-changing things there for sure. People
So,
still talk about it, right? When you go back to the small town.
right. So you learn about kindness. You learn about thinking long term. You bring this team together to win the state championship as the underdog, to be really transparent, and you worked out how to bring all of this together. How did you end up with the math track? Why does a guy like that choose to be an educator and then in education and then like what drove you to jump from there to education? What was What was it?
Education and especially math was a blend of some of the things that they also have as characteristics, like an unquenchable thirst for problem solving and learning about things. Math sort of offers you an infinite set of problems.
Why do you like
Uh,
math so much?
it helps you make sense of things in a way of looking at the world that is inherently more logical than, and actually filled with more peace than I think some of the other options that people choose to help them understand life. Um,
So peace.
yeah,
It removes the chaotic.
I think if you can remove chaos from how you look at the world and try to logically make sense of it, you're a way more peaceful person. That
Right.
through line of kindness isn't possible if you're on fire inside, right?
Right. Yeah. So you like math. You see, it's sort of duplicity. It's like it's there's duplicity to it. It's not just one type of tool. It's a two-sided tool, for want of a better word. But what what made you drive into it is, you just won the state championship, man. Like what you do anything. You're the shortest guy in the world that won the state championship. What do you mean? You think long. Why'd you bet your future on understanding math and getting closer to it?
Well, I didn't know much about college when I went.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what a credit hour was, honestly. But one of my first experiences was I tested out of a whole bunch of mathematics, even though I was sort of surprised that I did. And then my first actual math course at Purdue, which is a pretty well respected in-state institution, but it's known for its sciences. The course was incredibly oppressive to a lot of people. It was like, look left, look right. The two dudes next to you aren't going to make it because they're not good enough. And
Really?
think in one way, the sciences became this oppressive mechanism that I wanted to in one way overcome.
It's like the
Uh,
ultimate test of your persistence.
I think in one way it's certainly that. I think math is used as a filter for who can and who can't. In almost every instance of which you look into our society about it, and I don't think it's actually a discipline that's made for that. I think it's human, and it kind of pissed me off that something that I thought had so much value was being used as a way of oppressing people.
Really?
I mean, you have to take a math test to like work at a manufacturer. Like, why the hell does someone being able to
So you realize people were removing the joy of math.
oh, I think that happens at every step of the education system. And
Well, I don't like it. Let me tell you right now.
you probably don't like it because you were taught poorly.
Oh, 100% I was taught poorly. By the time I had a brilliant mathematics tutor, and when I was in high school, um, and we had a goal of me passing advanced calculus or whatever it was. It's like and like you only need to pass to shoot up your scores on everything, like because it's so hard to pass. And like I think for 2 years he's like, we're just going to game the test. He goes, because you just don't care. He goes, but you've hired me to do something, and we just talked every time we were there about he would just see where my physical training was at for the military. Like he didn't. He's like, all right, this is the next question that's going to be in your exam. And he was one of the guys that used to write the exams all over the country. And he goes, I guarantee it's going to look like this. He goes, so we're going to reverse engineer the question because you have zero interest in how it works. And he was 100% right. Yeah. So you realize that this is like a systematic problem. It's not a teacher by teacher problem. It's like a cultural problem.
It's a cultural problem, and it was first experienced myself. I mean, I was a math major and did just fine.
Yeah.
But I saw the oppression of which it was placed on. And then if you start to get into the things like as you unpack trying to understand what's happening to you, at least how I work, you look at historically, and historically mathematics was used as an oppressive mechanism. Those who could controlled everything. Um, we've moved society forward in certain ways by teaching it to young people now, supposedly equitably, but it's an oppressive mechanism and inherently it's one of the most creative and otherwise representative of some of the finest things about human beings, and we're not conveying it right.
So you think it's just a narrative that needs to change?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked, but the team now and everyone else, I believe that most of what we do in our lives in terms of how humans operate are based on narratives. They're based on myths, like money. Money's a money's a myth that we all believe in,
Mm,
right? And if you exist on the idea that human beings work on narratives, then it starts to help you understand why certain narratives carry through in sort of oppressive ways. When you meet somebody that has a PhD in mathematics like me, one of the first things that a lot of people think is this person's off the charts brilliant. That's a myth. Um, it's a
yeah.
myth a lot of people benefit from, and myself included, benefit from somebody having a knee-jerk reaction that they're automatically working with a genius. Uh, I can probably quickly dispel that myth if you hang out with me, but
Mm,
the the other side of it is that if we have a cultural narrative and myth, then shouldn't we be teaching things as narratives? And where we've landed with how we think about the role of the teacher is that the role of the teacher is a storyteller. Let's make sure they're telling the right story so that this isn't an oppressive myth, but something that people feel a part of.
right.
And that took 15 years to get that concise of an explanation of what I've been trying to accomplish. But once we got it, and I said teachers are storytellers, everybody started nodding their heads, you know, which is usually when you figure out the right way to say things, like our work together and how we've been doing some of the partnerships. Once the narrative got right, it became a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, but you're dealing with a tough one. Like for example, um, I call them like the finance people value extractors because they don't do anything. That sort of sticks. And then my really abrasive term of finance people in general is spreadsheet lickers. Like I've never been in a situation where they've either out mathed, just common basic math. They've been really valuable in what I've paid them to do. But no one sort of said they all laugh when I say spreadsheet lickers, but no one re-says it. Do you know what I mean? Like no one really, a way of changing the narrative about something is to be divisive, to be to want of a better word. Like it's like, hey, these guys are spreadsheet lickers. They're not really doing anything. We think they are. Like we still talk about say the consulting firms and audit firms with these big pedigrees, and it's like they're not doing much for me. They weren't even paid to do the thing I need them to do. So it's a hard problem. Like this math really dominates industries, and I think you. So how long is this going to take? Do you think? Like, what do you think? How long is this going to change? Because the fundamental thing I worked out is people don't like to count. Like I want
They
someone else to do it. Yeah, it's like a
they make jokes. This is something I learned early on is that people can make a joke about not being good at math, but you don't hear the same conversation about somebody saying that I'm illiterate and I can't read. They're like, I'm not good at math.
yeah.
You don't hear somebody go, I can't read. Like it's a narrative difference, right? It's a
Yeah.
cultural difference. And I don't I suspect that I learned at some point that there'll be unintended consequences for what you achieve if you're driven the way that I am. And I don't know what people will take forward from what we're establishing, different types of degrees, different narratives, ways of training teachers, ways of
Mm,
consolidating these ideas of narrative into those things. I didn't want to do something small, and I wanted to impact people with the skills and the talents that I had in a positive way.
mm,
I think I'm there in certain ways. I think the next step of how I see these things and what an end game would be is I have no idea. I do know that we've come farther than almost any group has in this task, and um, from there,
so you
uh,
don't know how long it's going to take. You know it's going to be long, and you think you're right on the frontier.
yeah, yeah, I think.
What's keeping you going then?
I'm a mixture of what keeps me going is that I love the path that we've taken thus far and how far we've come towards, that the quote basically that says the only way to, experience a divine experience on earth is to fight a losing battle and not lose it. Um,
Hmm. Where's that from?
it's kind of a rogue author. Um, what is it? E.g. Shoot, I'll think of it. But the idea of I've experienced what it feels like to try to do really hard things, and I love it. That keeps me going. I do like the idea of what we're doing in terms of how much I've seen the narrative change impact people's lives. And on top of it, I don't have any disposition to be a wandering academic that does cool shit only. I'm
Hmm.
driven by the idea that I want to be wealthy as well, and I don't make apologies for that.
Okay. And how often do you think about just stopping?
Never. If I had thought
It
about
doesn't even cross your
stopping,
mind?
no, I don't think so. I'd have to be made to stop, and if I've learned anything, um, usually it's only over if you say it is.
Right. And then what do you think you want your children to take away? Do you have kids, don't you?
Yeah, I've got three.
What are they taking away from you being now right on the frontier? Do they understand that's what drives you? Are you worried about what they understand?
I think if I know anything about kids, they don't typically care what you do professionally as their dad. They don't understand it, and they may not try to because they're trying to develop their own narratives in life. They care about how you treat them, and they care about how you talk about things and why things matter. And I think they have gathered that why this matters is the ways that I've described to you, that it's something that's hard. And I ask them questions about their own experiences, and I say, yeah, Dad's trying to change that. And
Mm.
I talk about things like there's a lot of people that like to talk about changing things, and there's people that actually try.
And when you have those conversations where you talk about it in terms of why you need to change things and why, how do you feel?
How do I feel about explaining that to my kids?
How do you feel when when you're doing it?
I think in one way it's the type of dad and man that I've wanted to be. And as a
Okay.
chance opportunity to explain it to my kids that that's why I do what I do and it's authentic. Um, I feel good about that.
Right. And if you were sitting in, what was the high school you went to?
Plainfield High School?
Plainfield, Plainfield High School. Have they ever won the state championship since?
No.
All right. So you're in there. Is it the same coach?
No, he retired probably 12 years ago.
So
So
you spent, you won it, then you spent like 3 years trying to do it again, and you couldn't. Right. Okay.
probably,
So
yep.
you got, this Kevin who's on the frontier that's playing a very long game, that's learnt the lessons of how to be kind and compassionate, better presence. He's learned persistence matters. He's learned that he can be the glue as the underdog, which is an odd trait to learn as an underdog, but it's, you can be the glue. Um, and you've learned this sort of thing about narratives and how they can remove value from things. Really, is what you're saying about math. It's removing the value of what math is, and that it could be a leisure activity. To be really transparent, it's crazy saying that, but it's not really. It's like that's what it used to be. That's where a lot of the puzzles and um, newspapers come from. Uh, so, what would you be telling, you know, someone that was like Kevin that thought he could do the state championship with his friends? Right now with all of that now being learned, now being a founder running this company, what's the piece of advice that you would offer someone that's sitting in your high school seat that's just joined the basketball team, but it's the shortest person in the room?
Um, what would I tell them? I would probably tell them that there isn't anything that you cannot accomplish, but at some point you're going to be faced with a choice of whether you continue or not, and that's going to be the choice of whether you get there or you don't. I really do believe that. You may change what it is that you're trying to accomplish based on the circumstances that you're in and maturity. But the through line is typically the same, is that you're trying to do something big and you should know that you can.
And if they said, Kevin, that sounds all well and good, but how do I know if it's the right journey for me? What would you say to them?
The only way that I've learned the right journey is by making enough mistakes to continue to point me in the direction. You're going to choose directions and make mistakes about that. We've done that with our business. We've tried things and failed and tried different things and created different ways, and the through line has continued to have a North Star of trying to impact this problem to be solved. I think if you keep that at the forefront, how you're going to get there is inevitably not going to be the way that you thought at the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, if it was, then you would be an absolute anomaly,
Mm,
uh, in my opinion.
right. Okay. And if you look forward 40 years, you've just finished your stint as your high school basketball coach yourself, and your company's been successful. How do you know that you push the ball far enough on the topic of math? What is there any indicator for you? Do you know what the North Star is? Do you ever get the chance to be the basketball coach? Do you know, or do you know that this is just it's not even possible, but it's worth a try?
Um, do you know? I don't think I can predict. I don't think I can predict what it would be like because there's different stages of which I think, would I look at a certain sort of an experience and say that I regret that I didn't do that, or I regret that I didn't pursue that because of X. If I don't have those regrets, I think I'm going to be pretty at peace regardless of what I'm doing, whether it's raising raising pigs and living on a farm with a bunch of robots, or leading some organization that's uh taken, to 1 million students enrolled in an apprenticeship program. I can't predict that. I think from
What do you want it to be?
what do I want it to be?
Mm.
I want to have peace in certain ways, and peace can be gotten in a multitude of avenues, I suspect. But
Do you know yet?
no, I think it changes all the time.
Okay.
I think the lust for peace doesn't change, but the type of peace is markedly different at different stages.
Okay. Well, man, thank you for your time today. It's it's rare that we have a state champion from Indiana on our Founders Unmasked, but I could see how you did it. And kudos to you for taking all of that energy as a young man and putting it onto an even more noble mission than getting all your friends free college, which is a fantastic endeavor in itself.
Yeah, I can't claim that I was the reason that we won, but was definitely a part of it.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely the reason everyone did it.
Maybe.
Mm. Okay.